Conservation Ag Update is brought to you by Martin Till. Hey, welcome to the show. Technology editor Noah Newman here. We're starting with breaking news. Strip tiller Alex Harrell has done it once again. He just broke his own world record with a 218 bushel soybean yield in Smithville, Georgia, just a few days ago. That's 12 bushels better than his 206 bushel yield last year. So here's how he did it. He strip tilled through a terminated wheat cover crop on red clay soil with a Schlegel rapid till while banding a homogenized mix of N, PK, sulfur, zinc, iron, and copper. Harrell then planted on March 21st in 30-inch rows at a rate of 110,000 seeds per acre with a mix of nutrients delivered with the planter, both in furrow and through a 3x3 system. He kept the irrigated soybeans pumped up with foliar fertility throughout the season at rates determined by weekly tissue tests. So Alex, what was your biggest takeaway from this plot?
The main thing we've taken away from these high-yield plots is how important singulation is on soybeans, not just corn. Emergence is still king in corn, but singulation is more important in soybeans than it is in corn. And making sure the planter is dialed in perfectly is huge, and that doesn't cost anything. So it's not a product in a jug or for dry fertilizer or anything like that. It's just making sure the planter is dialed in and we're getting proper singulation and emergence. That's the easiest way to get free bushels.
And Harrell says his record-breaking friends, Randy Dowdy and David Hula, called to congratulate him shortly after hearing the news. Okay, fun fact. Did you know that mustard can be used to measure soil health? I didn't until I saw this video. This is from the Soil Health Alliance for Research and Education Field Day at the Arlington Research Farm in Madison, Wisconsin. Research assistant Logan Barr is using a mustard liquid mix to draw out earthworms. Logan, how in the world does this work?
It's just mustard powder. I think we got this online, and we mixed about, I'd say a quarter cup or so with a gallon of water, and just shook it up and let it sit. And the way it works is that the mustard oil is an irritant to earthworms. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just add it into the soil, and it's gonna draw up the earthworms, and the amount of earthworms that we see are gonna help us know how healthy our soil is. And the field that we're doing this in is a second-year alfalfa field. It was tilled last year, but it usually has some pretty good soil structure to it. And we're hoping to see here that there's quite a few more earthworms in, for example, this system than like a corn system, conventional corn that's tilled every year. We'll have a lot less soil structure and fewer earthworms.
Interesting stuff there. And now I'll be thinking about worms when I put mustard on my hot dog this weekend at the Brewers game. All right, moving on. Elsewhere in Madison, the 2024 National Strip-Tillage Conference brought in over 350 of the brightest minds in conservation ag. Mackane Vogel catches up with one of them in this week's Cover Crop Connection.
Thanks, Noah. Mackane Vogel here with this week's Cover Crop Connection. At last week's National Strip-Tillage Conference in Madison, Wisconsin, I had the chance to catch up with Gary Zimmer, also known as the father of biological farming, who was attending the conference in hopes of learning more about how strip-till can fit into his biological farming practices. Here's what he had to say about the role that cover crops can play in a strip-till system.
You can get a really good crop by just playing the chemistry game and put on this nutrient, that nutrient, and feed it this and feed it that. But you see, if we look at where cover crops fit in, is that I'm trying to get a diversity of biology. I have to have that by a diversity of feeds. And the more diversity of biology, every one of those people that are talking, they use insecticides, fungicides, pesticides, they're constantly having to protect the plant, where I'd rather have the biology protected by having diversity, and I want to get my nutrients in that carbon biological cycle. Not only are they time released, but they can't leach, they can't erode, and I can constantly feed that crop. I think if we truly want to have healthy soils that are high yielding without tons and tons of inputs, I think we really need to play a much bigger focus on biology, and cover crops and plant diversity are really a big part of soil health. I think we're limited here in the upper Midwest from the standpoint that time we get our corn and beans harvested in the fall, it's too late to have much if we're just going to grow those two crops, so rye becomes one of the obvious things. Interseeding hasn't worked for everybody out here. And so rye is, because you can plant rye in November and still have it grow. And then the management of it always the issue. And I realize that's only one crop. Ideally, we'd be spending a lot more time and effort and research on developing cover crops for a specific need. We do have some, like mustard to control nematodes. We grow a lot of clover and legumes to get our nitrogen sources out here. And I want to have deep-rooted plants, and I wanted shallow-rooted. But we don't. The only way you have an opportunity to grow those cocktail mixes is to be able to have a third crop in your rotation, like wheat. And then you could, in August, you could plant that cocktail mix now. But corn and beans, you're really limited.
Zimmer says he'd like to see farmers be more intentional with cover crops and ask themselves what they are trying to achieve with a specific cover crop in their system. Well, that's all for this week's Cover Crop Connection. Until next time, I'm Mackane Vogel. Back to you, Noah.
Always great to hear from Gary Zimmer. Thanks, Mackane. So one of the highlights of the conference was the Strip-Till Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which featured Northfield, Minnesota Strip-Tiller David Legvold, University of Minnesota Extension educator Jody DeYoung-Hughes, and AGuru Machinery founder Bill Preller. During his acceptance speech, Preller reflected on his origin story and the man who helped him get here today.
The first year we no-tilled was 1973. And just to prove how weird we were, in 1974 we no-tilled into tractor-tall rye. So literally 50 years ago this spring, I was planting no-till corn into rye this tall. That's weird. It was a complete failure. You know why? That happened to be a dry spring, sucked all the water out. We had a horrible stand, and thank goodness we chopped it so we didn't know how much grain yield we didn't have. All right, so what's that have to do with anything? My dad would not have made that decision in 1973 to go cold turkey no-till without the information sitting on the kitchen table and his desk and the armchair by his chair that was No-Till Farmer magazine. That was the source of information. That was it. But it gave him enough confidence that there were other weirdos out there that he did it. It was a cow farm. My first love growing up was cattle. But that whole experience is when I fell in love with growing corn. If it hadn't been for Frank Lessiter and No-Till Farmer magazine, I would not be standing here today.
Perfect segue to our video of the week and a very special moment for Frank Lessiter, aka the Johnny Appleseed of no-tillage. Our entire staff was on hand as the No-Till Farmer editor opened the first box of his brand new book, Frankly Speaking, a non-whitewashed first-hand account of no-till farming's rise over 50 plus years. This book features 683 of Frank's personal columns and opinions as they occurred in real time dating back to 1972. The only editor of No-Till Farmer since its first edition, Frank's front row seat spans more than half a century, during which he witnessed no-till acres grow from 3.3 million acres to 110 million acres today. So congratulations, Frank. Can't wait to read the book. And that'll do it for this week. Email me your story ideas at nnewman@lessitermedia.com. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. Have a great day.